Xavi was right about Ousmane Dembele, but nobody listened. Xavi said his one-on-one ability is on par with the best Neymar. Listen to this.
He's at the level of the best version of Neymar.
In 2022, that quote was a meme. Nobody believed him.
Never mind this nonsense about he's the best version of Neymar.
By 2026, it is an undisputed fact.
He's not just a scorer. I think he made the difference.
Ousmane Dembele's story was supposed to be a cautionary tale of wasted talent and financial ruin. Instead, he stood on the Ballon d'Or stage as the best player on the planet. Everyone thought Xavi was crazy for the comparison, but as it turns out, the only thing he got wrong was the timeline. So, what exactly did Xavi see that every pundit, every analyst, and every frustrated Barcelona fan had already stopped looking for? To understand why that quote hit so badly, you need to go back to why Barcelona paid that fee in the first place. Dembele grew up in Vernon, a small town in Normandy, northern France. At 18, playing his only senior season at Rennes, he scored 12 goals and walked away with the Liga 1 Young Player of the Year award. Dortmund paid 15 million euros for him. One season later, he had 10 goals and 22 assists across all competitions, won the DFB Pokal, scored in the final, and picked up the Bundesliga Rookie of the Year award. German newspaper Bild described him in January 2017, just 6 months into his Dortmund career, as possessing extreme speedruns, wonderful dribbles. Scouts used a word they almost never use: generational. Then, Neymar left Barcelona for PSG in the summer of 2017 for 222 million euros.
Neymar thunderstorm is about to come to an end here in Barcelona. The Catalan club is now only waiting for the 222 million euros of the buyout clause to be paid in full by Paris Saint-Germain to make official what already is a reality.
And everything that followed got emotional fast. Barcelona needed a replacement, had the money from the sale sitting there, and panicked. They paid 105 million euros with 30 million euros more in add-ons, tied as the most expensive signing in the club's history for a 20-year-old who had completed exactly one season of senior football in Germany. Weeks into his debut, he ruptured his hamstring. That was September 2017. Over the 6 weeks that followed, he missed over 100 matches through injury at Barcelona, averaging just 21 La Liga appearances per campaign.
Too young of a player to be having muscles, soft tissue injuries time and time again. And so it goes back to what Julian was just talking about. You don't take care of yourself, it shows up out on the field. And as talented as you are, at some point, somebody's gonna have to tell him, hey, buddy, if you don't get your stuff together, you're out. We're gonna have to move on from you.
There's a story, confirmed by multiple sources close to the club, that Barcelona once sent a car to his house to drive him to training because he kept oversleeping. Reports have skipped recovery sessions, dietary habits that didn't match the demands of elite sport, and late arrivals kept resurfacing. 4 managers, Ernesto Valverde, Setien, Koeman, and then Xavi, tried 4 completely different approaches and got 4 identical outcomes. Flashes of what he could be, buried under absence and inconsistency. So, when Xavi publicly backed him in September 2022, comparing his one-on-one ability to Neymar at his absolute best, the reaction was massive.
It's still not right because he still needs to be consistent, and I think that the moment he's showing that he's a fantastic player. Xavi knows because he works with him every single day. It's true that we've been talking a lot about him if he should go because of his consistency, because he gets injured very easily.
This looked like a manager protecting a struggling player, not a coach describing what he genuinely saw. A year later, Barcelona sold Dembele to PSG for 50 million euros, activating a release clause that meant only half of that came back to the club on a player who cost 135 million euros. They recovered 25 million euros. The loss was roughly 90 million euros, not counting wages, bonuses, and medical bills over 6 years. The football world nodded. They'd been right to try. They'd been right to give up. Dembele was a cautionary tale, dressed in a cautionary tale, now heading to Paris to become somebody else's problem. But the question Xavi's words left hanging in the air never quite went away. Was he just being loyal, or did he actually see something? PSG hired Luis Enrique in the summer of 2023, and Dembele followed him there that August. The first season together answered that question badly. 6 goals across all competitions in 2023-24. In a league that wasn't exactly the Bundesliga. That was not a dip, it was a pattern, stretching across 5 managers, 3 countries, and 9 years, arriving at the same conclusion every single time. Things changed in a way nobody expected, and not gently. Enrique is, by every account from every player who has worked with him, terrifyingly direct. He doesn't hint, he tells you. He won a treble at Barcelona with Messi, Neymar, and Suarez in 2015, being fired by the Spanish national team after a World Cup exit to Morocco on penalties, and stopped caring what the press said about him somewhere along the way. He is precisely the kind of man who could afford to do what he did next. Enrique's system starts from the front. The press is not optional, and it is not cosmetic. When the lead attacker doesn't close down, the structure behind him collapses trying to compensate. Enrique watched Dembele and decided that the effort off the ball was the problem, not the injuries, not the gaming sessions, not the diet. Everything else was a symptom of a player who had never been held to a real standard without the ball. In October 2024, before a Champions League match at the Emirates, Enrique left Dembele out of the squad entirely. Not benched, not an unused substitute. Simply not there. When asked about it, he didn't hedge. If someone doesn't comply or respect the expectations of the team, it means they are not prepared to play. Later, when a journalist asked what the best decision of his year had been, expecting to hear about a tactical switch or a famous win, Enrique said it was this one, dropping Dembele. The Paris press nearly choked. What the confrontation did, tactically, was rewrite Dembele's entire job description. For his whole career, he'd been a touchline hugger, a right winger told to stretch play, beat his man, and deliver. Pressing was optional. Tracking back was optional. Enrique wanted a false 9, free to drift into midfield, arrive at the back post from angles defenders couldn't see coming, play everywhere, rather than wait at the edge of the pitch for the ball to find him. But there was a price. Press from the front for 90 minutes. No exceptions. Dembele came back a different professional.
The Ousmane Dembele show, and it quite simply has been ever since Enrique made the decision to change his role from a winger into a false 9. And that role, ultimately, that change in position, has ultimately been the catalyst for everything PSG have done this season.
He described the shift himself with Luis Enrique. I can play everywhere, as a 10, on the wings, or as a false 9. At Barcelona, I was more tied to the wing. Now I have a lot of freedom.
He has become an entirely different player.
He'd been given the freedom, but he'd had to earn it first. Then came January 2025, and the evidence started arriving in real time. PSG hosted Manchester City in a high-stakes Champions League group match. Enrique started Dembele on the bench. City scored twice in quick succession after the break, and Paris was on the ropes. Dembele came on at half-time and slotted past Edison to drag PSG back into it. The ultimate tactical rescue under maximum pressure.
2-0 down for PSG, I was like, okay, where is this going? Because you're right, City should have maybe controlled more the rest half hour or 35 minutes of the game to maybe see it out. But the fact that PSG, Barcola, Dembele reduced the score so quickly after only 3 minutes after the Haaland goal changed the whole dynamic because the stadium believed again.
Xavi had said he was there to make a difference. That was what making a difference looked like. A week later against Stuttgart in the Champions League, Dembele scored a hat-trick. For years, Xavi had pushed him to shoot more, score more, stop drifting, and start finishing. In that match, the inconsistent finisher label died. He went on to finish the 2024-25 season as joint top scorer in Liga 1 with 33 goals and 15 assists across 49 appearances, 45 goal contributions in total. His previous career at Barcelona was 14 goals in a single season. With Mbappe gone, PSG stopped being a one-man franchise held together by a superstar. Dembele didn't fill that gap. He made the gap irrelevant.
Mario just mentioned Dembele pressing. In the manner in which he did, and it's something that Luis Enrique has highlighted and mentioned time and time again, that in itself is a difference between basically what Dembele is doing and did in the final of Champions League and essentially what he asked Kylian Mbappe to do and Mbappe was never willing to do.
The biggest stages in football have a way of separating what a player claims to be from what they actually are. In May 2025, the Champions League finally delivered its verdict on Dembele in the most brutal possible way, a 5-0 demolition of Inter Milan, the largest winning margin in the history of the competition.
5-0. This is the biggest win in European Cup history.
He logged 2 assists and won UEFA Champions League Player of the Season, not by running at defenders chaotically, not by surviving on raw pace, but by carving Inter apart with the kind of spatial intelligence you'd expect from a player at the absolute top of the game.
But Ousmane Dembele, a complete performance from an attacker. All that was missing was a goal. Running the game from deep, picking up the ball all over the pitch, running at players, playing players through, creating chances, dazzling.
He dictated a Champions League final.
He just won the Champions League. Without Mbappe, without no Messi, without no Neymar, the biggest name on this team is Dembele.
That was what Xavi meant in 2022, when he compared him to Neymar at his peak. Not the tricks, not the dribbles, the capacity to control the biggest match in club football from the front. Meanwhile, Kylian Mbappe watched PSG's semi-final from his couch. In 2025, Real Madrid had been eliminated by Arsenal in the quarterfinals. The player who left Paris to win everything watched the player who stayed become everything.
Kylian Mbappe leaving PSG after literally asking for everything to be given to him at that club, leaving on a free to join the team that spent years chasing you after they won a Champions League. And the following season, that team winning nothing, while the team you left won everything.
Then came 2026. PSG reached a second consecutive Champions League final, this time against Arsenal, a team built to suffocate exactly this kind of attacking player. It finished 1-1 after 120 minutes. Dembele stepped up and converted the decisive penalty. The player once written off as physically unreliable and mentally brittle, the one Barcelona publicly offered to other clubs at a press conference, held his nerve in the single heaviest moment club football produces, and did it 2 years running. In 2025, he was awarded the Ballon d'Or, and this year, he's already one of the favourites to lift the trophy. A kid from Vernon, Normandy, who averaged 21 league appearances a season at Barcelona, who was sold at a €90 million loss, standing on football's biggest individual stage as the best player on the planet.
Ousmane Dembele wins his deserved Ballon d'Or. Deserved. Yes, you heard me correctly. Deserved.
What Xavi got right in 2022 wasn't a prediction. Everyone in football could see the talent.
Because the talent is there. I agree. Offensively, what he does with his right foot and left foot, he doesn't even know if he's a left-footed or right-footed. He has the talent of maybe a Neymar, I don't know, but he has a real talent. Now he has to work there. It's only there for him. You know, how he replaces himself when he loses the ball?
What they couldn't do, or wouldn't do, was keep believing in it after 6 years of injuries, missed training sessions, and a €90 million loss. Xavi looked at a player the club had publicly offered to other clubs at a press conference and said he was on Neymar's level, not privately, out loud. At the exact moment, it made him look delusional. That's not optimism, that's conviction. And there's a difference. Dembele didn't change overnight. The environment around him finally caught up to what he needed. Xavi saw it, Luis Enrique built it, and Dembele delivered it on the grandest stages the sport has.
And of course, Ousmane Dembélé has been one of the best players of the season, if not the best one. He scored, he passed, he fight, he defends, and that's the real mentality. That's a leader. A real leader is the guy who shows with his example the way to go.
The football world laughed at Xavi in 2022, and by 2026, nobody was laughing. Subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Was Xavi really the one who saw it coming?